All right, folks. This is a really special conversation. I am excited today to be talking with Mindy Mitchell, who identifies as a solo ager, but the journey that Mindy has been on, what really drew my attention to Mindy's journey was that she chose to move to a life plan continuing care community and then discovered that it wasn't really the place for her and is going down a different path. But Mindy, I know a little bit about your story, and I know there's going to be some amazing nuggets here. But before we dive into that, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background,
Yeah, thanks,
and
Steve.
let's get that started.
I'm originally from the Pacific Northwest, and I lived there until like 88. And I was a corporate banker at that time. Excuse me. And then at that time, my husband was transferred to South Florida. So we were in South Florida for about 7 years, and then he got transferred to Northern Virginia. So at that time, from that time on, I have been in Northern Virginia up until the point when I decided that I was getting older. I was now a solo ager, and I needed to think of something else. Now, while I was in Northern Virginia, part of the time I had my own professional organizing practice. And I very much enjoyed that. I'm very like, I don't know what side of the brain it is, but I'm really like bullet points and stuff like that. But so I did that. And then at that time, about 2005, I was contacted by a design build company. And they wanted me to be part of their design team. So I started doing that. I worked with Sun Design for quite a few years and became certified in aging in place.
Wow.
So I do have a lot of I do have a lot of old people background. So it was really great. I mean, it's interesting. You get to a certain point and you look back and you see how things just flowed the way they were supposed to flow. So
Yeah, so,
anyway,
so just to point out, I mean, so many people are navigating this journey with no knowledge of this weird aging ecosystem. You had familiarity with it, and let me ask one follow-up question on. I appreciate that you identify as a solo ager, and
mhm.
you had mentioned your husband. Is your husband still with you? And
No,
uh, did he pass away or divorce?
divorce.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I just I bring that up because it's important. There's many of us become solo agers,
Mm.
and by accident, we never imagined, that this person we walked down the aisle wouldn't be with us till death do us part,
Yeah.
and then just out of curiosity, because you're on this topic of solo aging, you feel comfortable like telling folks that, hey, I'm a solo ager. That doesn't uh I I appreciate that, but that you don't have hesitancy in that area because some people do.
Mm. I've been solo aging for so many years. I don't even think about it anymore. I did think that, I would go into old age with somebody, and it
Hmm.
just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, then that's when probably about 2024, just last year, or a few years before that, I started thinking about community, a residential community, a CCRC. And I had a friend who knew of a place. And so that's when I started looking into that. Now, the thing about it was this CCRC was clear cross country back in Washington State. And for some reason, I thought this will be perfect because my family's still out there. But my parents had died. My brothers are like in their 80s. And I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, So I met with my financial planner. I knew people that were also moving out there. I did all of my research. And then in 2024, they had a place for me. So it was perfect. Everything was working out so great. Go
Now,
ahead.
let me interrupt you. This is the I know this is a fascinating part of the story, but I want to kind of back up a little bit because you're in Northern Virginia.
Right.
You're working for a design firm that helps people modify their homes to age in place. Did you, before you made the decision and did the research on the Washington State community, did you do sort of a deep dive on what would it look like if I stay where I'm at and stay in Northern Virginia? And did you research any of the options around here?
I did. I did. And I think that the telling point that made me think about going there is because I had friends that were already on the list. And they were like childhood friends. I've known them forever. And it just seemed perfect. The other thing is that it was very fear driven on my part because I'm also like a glass is half empty kind of person. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I really wanted to be someplace where I would be taken care of all the way through, independent to hospice.
Now, did you have, up to this point, have you had any significant healthcare scares?
Mhm.
Because oftentimes that's a driver to a decision like this.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I mean, I am so blessed with good health. I'm 73 and knock on wood. It just seemed like, you know what it seemed like? If I could tick this off the list, like my whole future life, then I could rest. I could relax
Peace of
because
mind.
of, yeah, peace of mind, because it was just
Yeah.
always in my head. What am I going to
Okay.
do? Yeah,
Okay, so let's get back to the journey. You did the research, and I get it. Returning home to the place where you grew up, your brothers are there, you got some friends there. It's a life plan community. You move in and you're good to go no matter what happens to you. I can see the rationale here in the decision.
right. So everything worked so perfectly time wise. I got all my stuff shipped, and um, and I got there, and I was like, now what do I do? And that's when I started having some realizations around, do I want to be here? Is this the best place for me? And of course, initially, it had nothing to do with the facility. It just had to do with my expectations. And a lot of it, those expectations were driven by fear. I just wanted it taken care of. I wanted
Hmm.
to be taken care of.
Got it.
And I just wasn't ready to be taken care of,
Okay.
basically, is what it was.
And so I mean, I guess, I mean, again, because you're a professional organizer and you're in this area, I mean, the downsizing, did you have much of a downsizing process from where you were living in Northern
Oh,
Virginia to Washington State?
yeah, no, because I downsized a couple times before that.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
downsizing is kind of my hobby. I really like to have
You're a
all my,
minimalist.
I'm very much a minimalist.
Okay, yeah. Most of the world is not, and but that worked in your favor. But still, this is not a move down the street. This is a move across country, and
Right.
so you get moved into the new life plan community, and I imagine you had like I mean, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Mm.
did you have, getting into the new place and it's like, yay, I'm here and I'm gonna max out the opportunities of the community, or was it sort of like day one, it's like, uh-oh, did I make the wrong move?
No, it took a while, and bear in mind that I moved there in the middle of summer,
Okay.
which is the most beautiful time to be in Washington State. And the place where I was right on the edge of the rainforest. It wasn't the best idea I ever had. So, because I need a lot of sun, and I know that about myself, and I don't know. Anyway, it was like, so I ended up there, and I did throw myself into stuff. I signed up for exercise classes and, things like that. And as time went on and the weather changed, I would say the biggest factor for me was the weather
Huh.
because it is
Okay.
so dreary. It's always drizzly there. I don't know if you've ever been there in the winter, but especially in the location where I was, like it's just there's always drizzle and there's always gray. It's a lot like London, actually. And I didn't realize what a toll that would take on me,
Okay.
an emotional toll, really.
All right. So the weather, one very important component for you, and then you're starting to think, uh, holy cow, made the move, which based on the way you've described it, is going to be your last move. It's like, hey, I checked all the boxes. I don't have anything to worry about. Now I can just, build my lifestyle here. So you came to this realization, and now you're sort of did did you have sort of like a crossroads where you're sort of like, let me just gut it out. It's just I lived here as a kid, I can deal with the weather. I'll just gut it out. Eh, or was it like how much hemming and hawing between gutting it out and let me make a move did you go
Make a
through?
move. One of the things that happened was as I started feeling a little less chipper about being there, is that I realized how far away my support group was. They're all in Northern Virginia, and it's not an easy flight, even out of SeaTac. It's you can't always get a direct flight. Anyway, I started feeling very far away, and this doesn't have anything to do with my family. Also, my family was there, but they're older. They have their own lives. It's like all of a sudden I plop myself down and I don't know what I expected. Like it was
Yeah.
going to be like my childhood. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was. But anyway, one of the other things that started impacting me, and I started thinking, uh-oh, was the medical system that they had. They have there was like hardly any access to specialists. And when I started feeling bad about being there and getting a little depressed, there was no one I could get in to see.
Hmm.
And that's when that really scared me too. I'm like, oh my gosh, my support group's not here. I don't have my medical support group because being
Hmm.
in Nova, Northern Virginia, I had a well entrenched medical team. And as it turned out, what I ended up doing was flying to Virginia
Hmm.
and seeing my doctors for some things that happened because I didn't have time to wait 6 months for a specialist in Washington.
Wow. Okay. So I understand this rationale. Now, here's the thing that I've never talked to anybody about, which is why I'm so excited to talk to you about it, is you decided, okay, I made a decision and I'm not ready for this yet, so I'm going to pivot and do something else. So you signed this contract. I imagine your community had an entry fee and all that stuff, and you decided that I'm going to start looking at an alternative, a different decision. So walk us through that, and I guess walk us through what do because you're a planner, I'm assuming you're hanging tight there as a resident, still, participating. And now, okay, I'm going to find what my next move is going to be. Tell us a little bit about that thought process.
What I did was I went back to Virginia, like I said, and visited and talked to some friends, and they were like, maybe you just need to get out of there. It's just not the place for you. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But then it was like, but I paid the money and I did this and I did that. And am I giving up too easily? Am I missing an opportunity? And um, and then I went to Florida for the winter, last winter, because that's what I usually did when I lived in Virginia. Spent my winters
Okay.
in Florida. And I thought, you know what? I feel so different being in sunshine and being close to my support group that I think I just need to go. And I talked to them at the facility about how I was feeling and things like that. And at that time, I hadn't even thought about getting money back. I didn't care.
Hmm.
That's
This was
how
just, I gotta, like, the weather is just not working
it's just
for
not
me.
working.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now let's back up a little bit because as you peel off the onion, how long had you been wintering in Florida uh, when you were living in Northern Virginia?
Oh, probably it was after I retired, so probably about 6 years. And I always come back to the place where I used to live in the 90s. So I have friends here and I know the area and I have doctors here.
Okay. And
Yeah.
because you're saying here, uh, it sounds like the move that you made was not back to Northern Virginia. The move that you made was to Florida full time.
Right,
And
right.
those wintering months, the 5 years after retirement, were you renting a property when you would go down
Yes,
there, or did you
yes.
purchase? Okay. All
No, I
right.
didn't purchase. I'm pretty, I don't really, I sold my house quite a while ago, and so I've been renting. I am a renter. I'm comfortable with it. I think it feeds my soul. Like I can go anywhere. I can just up and go. And I like that.
I'm glad you bring that up because this is a great point for people that are tuning in is that if we are homeowners, it's especially at this chapter in our life, it's very because you've owned your own home and you've put your fingerprint on it, it's natural for all of us to migrate to, oh, I'm leaving Northern Virginia, I'm going to move to Florida and buy a condo. And,
Right.
because I need it to be my place or what have you. And I'm always telling folks, it's like, look, you can rent, and check out the neighborhoods and
Yes.
see, and then you're only bound to the end term of that lease.
Hmm.
And those of us who move in and buy homes know that in that first year, you spend a heck of a lot of money making improvements to that property to put your fingerprint on it, only to
Hmm.
be like, oh, geez, I'd rather live across the bay or something like that. So that's great. I mean, everybody is unique. I mean, your
Right.
story is very
Definitely.
unique, but I think there's some threads that people will identify with. So, okay, so and also you have the benefit of having a support network in Florida, having a support network in Northern Virginia. You tried out your support network in Washington, and I would probably say that had you moved instead of moving to Washington State, if you had chosen a life plan community in Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale, you might had a longer runway there. It sounds like the weather really
Hmm.
impacted your mental psyche, and but that being said, you so now your your friends are like the so you decided. Did you contemplate moving back to Northern Virginia, or were
I
you sort
did.
okay?
I did, but it's very expensive there. And I didn't exactly know because Northern Virginia has a lot of sunshine. Even,
Yeah.
the skies are generally blue. And so I never had any problems when I was living there. But I did. But I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, why not go to Florida? get
Well,
a year's lease
yeah.
and see what happens.
And you were
So,
already spending what, 4 to 6 months in Florida anyways.
right,
Yeah.
right. And I
Okay.
would not have been doing that if I lived in Washington. That was the other thing. It was too far to go. It was just too
Yeah.
far. It was too
Okay, so
far.
now let's talk about something that I'm curious about, and I know others are too. You go to the life plan community you're living in, and you're like, all right, I'm moving. Uh, Tell us what that process looked like.
Um, I went to them and I just said, it's not working. I feel like it's affecting my emotional health for sure. And at that, they were very concerned, of course. And so it was pretty effortless. I I came back from Virginia, went back there, packed up some stuff, and actually, what I did was I packed up my car. All I took was what fit in my car, and then I shipped my car. And then
Huh.
that's what I came to Florida with
Oh,
because I
wow.
rent a furnished apartment.
Oh, okay. So now this is okay. Now I'm sure people are curious, and you don't need to use real numbers, but
Oh,
your life plan community had what most of us think is a large entry fee, I'm assuming.
mm-hmm.
And what percentage of that did you get back?
Let's see. It was the total times 1.5 times how many months I actually lived there.
And how many months were you there?
I was there 11. Even though I was in Florida, I still had the place there. So it was
So
11
you were there
months,
about a year. Okay.
about a year. Mhm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so and I love the idea of packing up your car and you ship that to Florida. Now, what I'm curious about now, you've had a taste of a life plan community, okay?
Mhm.
Um, I understand the rationale in moving to the one in Washington State. Now you're living in an apartment rental and in Florida. What part of Florida, by the way?
South Florida, Jupiter, Juno
Okay.
Beach.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. So in the Jupiter area, and where do you see a life, or do you see a life plan community coming into your, forgive the pun, orbit because you're in Jupiter, um, uh, in the future?
Okay, so of course I've given this much thought. I learned a lot of stuff being in the community in Washington as far as things to do for myself. And here, and I guess in other places, but in Florida, they have a plethora of retirement communities. Now, the community I'm in is not an age community. It's not 55 plus. It's a gated community. There's families. It's a lot of activity and things to look at, water, fountains, all that kind of stuff, which I like, which I like to have that noise. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking at some places that you rent month by month. It's sort of like they talked about yesterday, the caregiver people that talk
Hmm.
about going and you don't go in necessarily independent, although you can, and you pay, but it's a month by month, is what I'm trying to
Instead of
say,
the entry fee. So
instead of the entry fee.
yeah. So
And
okay.
yeah, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start looking at some places. I still have until April here on my lease, and I'm trying not to, sweat the small stuff. But in the meantime, I'm trying to, incorporate things to protect myself. I mean, I live in a one floor apartment. There's an elevator. They do have wide doorways. I mean, and I have a two-bedroom so that if something would happen to me, I could have someone come in, or my friends from Virginia can come visit, which is always nice. And I am going to get one of those life alerts just to have. And I've already got all my paperwork in order from the attorney, the elder attorney. And some people have keys. I'm just trying to protect myself. But at the end of the day, I feel so much better here. I mean, it just does my heart good to be here. And that's what I'm listening to. I don't know what's
Okay,
going on.
wow. What a great journey, and what a great learning experience to figure out what makes you tick. And I think the reason I really like having you on is that you sort of are a great illustration of an advanced planner, like somebody, you said it yourself, professional organizer, knowledgeable about the network. You did everything right, but you had this blind spot, the weather. Okay.
Yeah.
And really, I think the weather, like transferring that community you were in to the neighborhood that you're in right now,
Oh,
you would have
yeah.
you would still be there,
Hmm.
but that weather component being literally across the country from your two support networks. Now, let me dive into your support network because this is something that we talk an awful lot about on the solo aging discussions. And it sounds to me like you have very open and transparent relationships and conversations with your friend group.
Yeah.
Um, have you, and how do you like, for example, if today something happened to you that required support, that
Hmm.
most of that many people think, oh, my kids will fly into town and take care of me. Like,
Hmm.
do you have you had conversations in place and enough people in your personal network that you feel like you could you'd have folks that can sweep in and
Right.
provide some support to you?
I do. And one of them is the one that's got my power of attorney. She's got, she's my financial power of attorney. I've known her forever. And she's also, unfortunately, had to handle a lot of medical problems in her own family. She's very adept at dealing with hospitals and doctors, which is a plus. But she's in Reston, and, she'd get on a plane. It's
Okay.
like a two
And
hour flight.
and this is not a surprise to her. Like this
No.
is like you guys have had conversation, and folks, this is one of the main things is that Mindy's illustrating is that you talk to your friends about this. Now, have you ever encountered, because in your friend group
Mm.
you're talking about your future planning and what happens if me or you need help. Uh, do you have any people in your orbit that are like, Mindy, I can't talk about this stuff. I love you, I care about you, but
Mm.
uh, the head in the sand folks,
Right,
where they're
right,
still your friend, but you can't really have a conversation on these topics with them.
right. I do. I do. People aren't ready to look at it. And so I don't talk to them about it. They just know what I'm doing. And, it's funny because some of my friends are younger than me, and now they kind of follow along and ask me for help with different things, like when they had to sign up for Social Security,
Yep.
or how they get their supplemental insurance, and stuff like that. But I do have a core that I can talk to about anything. And these are the people that when I was in Washington said to me, we will come out. We will come out and get you.
Wow.
Hmm.
Now, I'm excited to hear this because a lot of times we talk about this core group, this network for solo agers, anecdotally or on a checklist, but the these relation well, let me ask you, like, it sounds like these are relationships that you've cultivated over a long period of
Hmm.
time. Um, but is there anybody, and can you recount like somebody in your network that was a new introduction? Because one of the things that we talk a lot about when we talk about solo aging is making friends and making connections.
Right.
So like you moved down to Florida and you've got an existing friend group, but can you share with us any situations in how you sort of made new friends or have been building your network in your new home?
Yeah, that's interesting you'd ask because that is something I've really been focusing on. I only have a couple of friends here in Florida. So, as an introvert and a solo ager, I right now am learning to go out and meet people. And I hate making commitments when I don't know the group, so it's a hard thing to do. So I've been, asking people about different things, different groups. I'm trying to think about what I would like to do. Like, do I want to sing? Do I want to be in a, but it sounds good when I'm sitting in my condo, but going out and actually doing it is a struggle for me because I'm just not that person anymore.
Yeah.
And so I am struggling with that.
But it's you're willing to sit here and talk to me about it and
Yes.
verbalize it and admit that, hey, this is an area, this is where I'm kind of pushing my comfort zone, but
Yes.
it, I'm challenging myself. And again, also, you've been through this life experience of moving to a life plan community and realizing that, wow, this isn't the place for me, and moving back across the country. So I imagine that that mindset will make it a lot easier if you join a choral group and all of a sudden you realize, well, this is a lot easier to kind of back out of than
And then the
the
whole,
life
yeah.
playing community.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, someone said to me, you can quit. If you don't like it, quit. And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, what a concept. But yeah, yeah. So
Well,
go ahead.
I no, I get the vibe that you're not a quitter. I mean, and that because you're a planner and it's like, hey, I'm making this commitment, I'm gonna make it happen. But none of us have a crystal ball. And but I
Right.
love the fact I like the fact that you identify yourself as an introvert and a solo ager. And and I think a lot of other people could identify with that as well.
I think so too. One of the main things is something that you posted and I watched on the Goodwin House,
Yeah.
that book that they have, and they tell you the things to do so you can stay sharp. And one of them, I do those things, but
Stronger
also
memory.
yeah, for the memory. One of the things that you always hear about is loneliness, and lack of community is the thing that can, hurt you the fastest as you
Hmm.
age. So that's why I want to have friends too.
This is
Sounds
great.
sad.
No, no, it's I think we talk a lot about this on our discussions is that when we're working and we're in an environment where just friends and community just it kind of just instantly surrounds us. And then
Right.
later in life, that network leaves when we're not working in the office. Our friends pass away, people move, and
Mhm.
we move, and now we have to kind of exercise the muscle of getting out there. So,
Right.
man, I this has been a fascinating discussion, Mindy. I am so thrilled that you were open to sharing your story because I think it's been helpful to me personally, but I think it can be helpful to many people that are thinking and planning for some of the
Hmm.
things that you've been going through. And is there anything specific that you may have thought about talking about today that you haven't mentioned?
Um, let's see, I was gonna, um, you know, I think in my case, as a planner, I just needed to get out of my own way and listen to my heart and listen to where I was going to be. You want to
Mhm.
be safe, but you know, I just needed to trust myself more about where I needed to be. And I'm always happy to talk to people about it. I mean, I can show you how to ship your car. So,
Yeah.
but
No, I
mainly
think,
it's that.
yeah, I think one common theme that I actually really like about people that identify as solo agers is that they're acutely aware of all of these different things that could potentially happen.
Right,
And I think there is a balance between sort of being too extreme in that area and then ignoring it.
right,
And I feel like in telling your story, you can see where you sort of teeter-totter to that, to what I think is a very healthy balance.
mm,
But I also think that something that I oftentimes hear when I interview somebody who identifies as a solo ager, it's sort of like, oh, and my friends, they have kids and they have, family or what have you, as though that absolves their friends from any form of planning.
right,
And that is a disaster. It's why I basically say that no matter if you're married with a bunch of kids and a family network, you've got to at least have a dialogue in your head on what life would be like if I am on my own, because it can
right,
happen to any of us.
right.
And none of us have a crystal ball. But wow, Mindy, this has been a fascinating conversation, and
Thanks.
I can't wait to have you back. And because I think there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. But thank you so much.
Oh,
And
you
folks,
bet.
I'll make sure to put links and more details in the below the recording here.
Okay,
All right,
great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks so much.
you bet.